I'm sorry, I'm going to call the meeting to order. If we could stand for the pledge. Mrs. Clark, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I would just like to raise a point of order. I did receive an email this afternoon from Town Manager Choda that given today's numbers, we are still in the red at this point. So he is requiring masks in all town buildings and during public meetings at this time, unless people can appropriately distance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medancy. All right, next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our September 9th meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda was to be the communication from student board reps, but all three of them had previous commitments this evening and they will not be here, but they will be back for our next meeting. So that will lead us to communications from the public. Once again, anyone that wants to speak, you know you have 3 minutes. We ask you to please sign your name and your address, which is on the podium. We will be timing it. And only citizens from the town of Southington are allowed to speak. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. I'm just gonna this. For the public record, my name is Angelica Espada. I live at 550 Darling Street, and I'm submitting this letter and speech on behalf of citizens and parents in the Southington community. I would like to formally request as a parent and constituent of Southington that you each would answer publicly and directly any and all questions submitted by the public at the next meeting and add it to the official agenda as it pertains to the future of all our kids. What is segregation? Can you each define the term? I can. Segregation is a noun. It is the act or practice of segregating, a setting apart or separation of people or things from others or from the main body or group. An example is the unconstitutional bill that was illegally passed on April 28, 2021. HB 6423 was an act concerning immunizations. It is the bill appearing as law passed that allowed the state to essentially eradicate, eliminate, and segregate families with religious belief. HB 6423 states that without a grandfathered in RE, religious exemption, dated prior to April 28, 2021, that your child would not be able to be enrolled in the Connecticut public school system. I think equal education rights should be for all citizens in the United States of America. Instead, this bill promotes a new-aged segregation. How could the state decide to interfere with individuals' religious rights to practice and raise their children with a religious belief? How could the state interfere with religious beliefs and take away the option to be exempt from a traditional vaccine schedule, which has been allowed via the RE for the past 50 plus years in the Connecticut public schools? I think, how could the state have validity anymore if the law that was passed violates the Constitution? I think regardless of vaccination status, which is a personal medical decision, Americans should be eligible to receive free, appropriate public education at any given public school. This state will not allow your child to attend public schools anymore, segregating them due to a vaccination status. This is unjust and need not be followed. All laws which are
Hi, my name is Jennifer Couture. I live on Prospect Street in Southington, and I'm going to give Angelica my 3 minutes. You're very welcome.
I'll read a quote. It's from Marbury versus Madison, 5 U.S. 2 Cranch 137, 174, 176, 1803. All laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. So when does segregation become a red flag to everyone here? This is probably a question for anyone who's running for office again, or anyone just in general. Is it when people are oppressed for their religious beliefs or kicked out of public schools or public buildings or even in their careers? For example, in the medical setting, people are being forced to take a vaccine regardless if they're in alignment with it or not. However, if you're a nurse in the medical setting, you would never force a patient to take something or a medical procedure or an injection that they refuse. It's like really happening, and it's happening on all different levels. So this is why I'm here today, because I want to know, when does segregation become a red flag to each individual in this room? It's not okay. Is it going to be a red flag for any of you when people are faced with inequality for failure to comply to a personal decision, medical decision? What about patients' rights? Like I said, the medical professionals would never force a patient to undergo or participate in a medical procedure that they competently, with a sound mind, refuse. And they're aware of the risks and the benefits. Or will the state try to abolish and terminate those patient Bill of Rights next? Is it when people are called to be ashamed for wanting their own choice in the matter? Is that when segregation is going to start, coming to your conscience mind? Respectfully. Is it when they are ostracized for protecting their natural and God-given rights to bodily autonomy and freedom here in the United States of America? Is it going to be a red flag when hate speech derives from it? Like when I was personally told to just off myself if I didn't want to get the vaccine or if I didn't want to comply. Or will segregation be a red flag when violence is a result of the masses who are being persuaded, manipulated by mainstream media via repetition, fear-mongering, human conditioning? Or when attacks are being publicly announced by a dividing president who calls on a particular set of groups to be angry with those who will choose not to participate in a global experiment? Is segregation going to be a red flag when it is too late?
Good evening. Sgt Isaac Rodriguez. I'm with the Connecticut Army National Guard. I live here in Southington, Connecticut, 550 Darling Street. I'd like to give my 3 minutes to Angelica.
Is segregation going to be a red flag for anyone when it is too late to take peaceful measures against it? Where there is risk, there should be choice. I want to remind the board specifically, along with the public, that there's yet to be a proper discussion regarding the special meeting that I requested at a previous August 9th Board of Ed meeting. I again am respectfully requesting there be a special meeting to fully inform the parents and the public of the proper donning and doffing procedures and policy for a specific medical mask that is medically appropriate for the prevention of this COVID-19 virus. I would also like to formally request the name of the type of mask specifically being recommended. Is it the KN95 masks? And if so, what data is the board members using to compare against or to? I also would like to know who the board recommends paying for these masks that are only effective in use for a short, limited time and need to be exchanged for new ones throughout the day in order to maintain and ensure effectiveness. I would also like to ask the board who will be held accountable to ensure that these policies and procedures are properly being enforced. If face cloths and surgical masks are labeled as non-medical, then can the new Department of Public Health Director explain to the public specifically at this special meeting in person why they and the higher authorities in the state of Connecticut are mandating masks in school and why they deem it to be medically appropriate if all those masks, which you guys have evidence of, literally say they are non-medical. I am formally again requesting that a special meeting be held. I am requesting that Governor Lamont be contacted to be present, along with the Department of Public Health Director for Southington and the state of Connecticut as well. I also request that the subject of masking not be put off the agenda until board members and those in authority have given specific answers directly to the parents publicly. I will say this in closing. COVID-19 is real. Families have been affected by many deaths and situations that I only know, the grace of God. In my family, we have overcome the sickness, but for some, it wasn't the same case. However, I think that everyone has a right to choose to wear a mask or not, to choose how they think is best to protect themselves and their families. And I also think, and I'm certain, that COVID-19 is being used for political purposes and control. COVID-19 is testing America's commitment to the people's constitutional and human rights. Very respectfully, Angelica Espada. Do you guys have like a Lysol sign? No? Just the hand sanitizer. I will take it.
Thank you.
Steve Valzewski, 191 Queen Street. 2 meetings ago, the meeting that was on August 12th, several parents came up here and told you that their children had been subjected to materials of critical race theory in the classroom. Now, I know the board continues to maintain that that's not taught in Southington, so I would assume hearing that from parents was pretty alarming and that you guys would have investigated that to determine what's going on there. That was a month ago, so I'm hoping that the board can give us an update on where that investigation is and what you've found regarding those parents' concerns. Thank you.
Michael Korsansky, 27 Hitching Post Drive. I'm here to talk tonight about something that happened, I guess it was a couple months ago, with the showing of an LGBT ally type video in the school system. I believe it was at Kennedy by one of the teachers there. So I want to share my thoughts on that. First, I'd like to say thank you for serving on the board. I know, you're not paid for these duties, so I appreciate that. And also thank you for holding the public comment session at the beginning of the meeting. The town council doesn't do that, and I appreciate you doing that, so we don't have to wait around. So my thoughts are teachers need to follow the curriculum and not teach things outside it, which appears was the case with the LGBT ally video shown in school based upon the information I have. Otherwise, teachers can push any agenda they want without parents knowing or having a say. Parents are and will continue to lose faith in the school system when teachers take it upon themselves to teach anything they want. That's not how it's supposed to work. I know parents who have and want to pull their kids out of public schools because they are losing faith in how it works. That is not good for anyone. Aside from that, many parents feel it is their role as parents to teach their kids about sexuality, not the federal government, the state government, town government, or the school. I feel that way and do not apologize for that. If some feel they want to have their kids watch this video or have other children watch this video or discuss related matters, I have no issue with that. They can do that outside of school. If this issue is that important to them, then why don't they do something to actually help children that they feel are vulnerable rather than bash people who have a different view of what they feel the school's role should be and what should be taught in school? If kindness and accepting is the lesson these teachers want the kids to know, then they can teach kids to be an ally to all students. There are kids bullied in school for all types of reasons, so why are we catering to one group? If I was being bullied for other reasons as a student, I would think I was less important because of the lack of attention. And who are these educators to decide what makes someone an ally? Because according to them, if my daughter doesn't want to compete in sports against a biological male or share a bathroom with a biological male, then she's not an ally. Most parents today are afraid to speak up on these topics for fear of being bashed by the woke crowd. I'm not afraid, so I'm going to speak for those who do not have the courage to do so. I think society is hypersexualized today, and keeping a constant focus on this topic is unhealthy for children. Let kids be kids and stop the constant focus on sexuality. I want my schools to be preparing kids to strive in math, sciences. Was that the? Yeah.
My name is Colleen Debkowski, and I give my 3 minutes to Mike.
And your address, please?
Oh, sorry. 363 Mulberry Street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So continuing, let kids be kids and stop the constant focus on sexuality. I want my schools to be preparing kids to strive in math, sciences, English, foreign languages, and many other subject areas. I believe focusing on sexuality in schools takes resources away from what the true mission of schools should be. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tyler Young of Berkeley Avenue, and I'm here again tonight to discuss the continued government overreach and blatant disregard for our children's well-being. Every person in this room knows that COVID-19 does not affect the majority of children. We also know that these masks don't really work. If there's truly an emergency going on right now, then I have a couple of questions for all of you. Why don't we have hazard waste bins in schools to dispose of masks and other soiled PPE? Why have we loosened the cleaning protocols? Why have we altered distancing requirements in both school and on the buses? If masks are so safe, why do our kids even need a break from them at all? If COVID is so dangerous, why are we allowing our kids to ever take them off and risk infection? Does COVID know if my kid is at recess and eating versus when they're learning these tedious Common Core math? What kind of science are these protocols following? I'm not anti-science because anti-science would be reading the label on a box of surgical masks that clearly states this product is not intended to protect against viral infections and then slapping one on anyway. We all know that these absurd policies are only in place as the strings attached to the over $7 million of federal funds that Southington has accepted. Yet here we are, continuing to ask you to stand up, unmask our kids, and stop with this charade. But I'm here to tell you tonight, very clearly, we are done asking. We are here to demand that you do your elected job to serve our school community. We are tired of being dismissed. We are tired of being ridiculed, tired of being called radicals by our drunk with power governor for simply standing up to his tyranny and protecting our children, which is something every single one of you should also be doing. There will be coming a time when the truth of all the corruption that you have participating in will prevail. And my hope is that each one of you hang your heads in shame for what your complacency has done to our innocent children. So please know this, if you continue to fail at the job that you were elected to do, you will be voted out.
Hello again, Kristin Ritchie from 270 Chesterwood Terrace. I'm here again, like every meeting, to talk about masking our kids. I continue to come here every meeting to ask you, just to ask some questions. I'm not asking you all to do anything radical or to jeopardize your jobs. I'm just asking that you ask questions for the safety and well-being of our children. So, why can't you ask Mr. Medancy and the local health department director and the state department director some of our questions? Ask the health department some of our questions. Why are you not doing that? And if you are doing it, why aren't we hearing from you? That's all we want from you. We know that you're not making these mandates. We understand that. I do think that you care about our kids. I think so. That kind of wanes a bit every meeting we come and nothing happens. But I wanted to remind you, we're just asking you that. We're just asking you to ask the questions for us, just to be objective, ask the questions. And a few points I wanted to reiterate tonight, and I talked about it last time. Medical exemptions from very qualified specialists are still being denied in our school system. That is wrong. How can any of you think that that is okay? It is not. Also, children are wearing masks in gym. They're running around in the gym. How many of you run back and forth in the gym any day without a mask? And then try it with a mask. How do you feel? How does a 5-year-old feel? Do you think a 5-year-old is brave enough or even realizes that there's a problem with their breathing and they'll go take it off and go to one of the 4 corners of the gym that the principal told me they would allocate for that so he can feel like he's in timeout? No, a 5-year-old won't do that. They'll just have trouble breathing and do nothing about it. Also, I offer to buy our elementary school some outdoor furniture. I offer to fund it myself. And I am told that there's no use for that furniture because the kids can't really sit at the tables outside because they'd be sitting too close, even outside. How does that make any sense? So I want you and Mr. Medancy to ask all of the other superintendents and the State Department of Health why this is so inconsistent across the state. Not all schools are acting like that outside. Some schools, it's a free-for-all outside. Some schools, it's maintain a little bit of distance if you can, okay. And some schools, it's like this, where they have to maintain 6 feet outside. That is not right. These kids are not being kids. Today's stats on the state COVID portal for teachers and staff COVID cases, there's 85 cases among vaccinated teachers. That's 73% of the positive cases amongst teachers right now are vaccinated people. I'll just leave you with that.
I didn't bring any backup. If there's someone that would allocate me their 3 minutes, I'd really appreciate it. I don't think I'll get through this. My name's Randall Heath. I'm a lifelong resident of Southington, 165 Kensington Road, graduate of the SPS system in class of 86. And I rise tonight to request that the BOE reiterate clearly its commitment to science and evidence-based decision-making. Opinions are, by definition, individual. Opinions don't carry and should not be given the same respect as scientific consensus, data, and evidence when the board is considering policy. This is particularly true when policy decisions have an effect on everyone in the school, teachers, admin, students, staff. The field of public health is not based upon the idea of everyone doing their own thing. The word public in public health and public education should be a clue that these are community endeavors, not an every man for himself situation. Our public health officials and the BOE have an obligation to do what is best for the community, the aggregate, even when it isn't popular. Connecticut's been relatively lucky with high vaccination rates and firm public health measures so far, but the vaccination rate of our children 12 to 18 is only about 50%, and the rate for kids under 12 is 0. There are no vaccines for them. Thus, the school community is less vaccinated, less safe than the community at large. Children under 18 now make up more than 25% of new COVID infections. Pediatric hospitalizations are higher than at any previous point due to the transmissibility of the Delta variant. COVID-19 is now a top 10 cause of adolescent deaths. We have limited tools to protect our children and the families that they will carry any infection home to. We can only social distance so much in classrooms, and our best tool, vaccine, is only for 12 and up, and even the vaccinated can carry and transmit the virus. For under 12, we have only 2 tools. The vaccine wall that all of us create to protect those kids, and not enough of us are vaccinated to make that wall sufficient. That leaves us with only masks. Delta's R0 is between 5 and 9 compared to the initial RO variant on the first variant of 1.5 to 2. Wearing masks in school during the middle of a highly contagious pandemic should be a no-brainer, as simple as kids wearing car seats and seatbelts, which nobody argues about. Nobody hollers, unbelt our children. Why? Because the data shows that they work, just like vaccines and like masks. They're overwhelmingly safe. Nobody argues about it. Could you be injured by a seatbelt? Sure. But like vaccines, the risks are vanishingly small, and the benefit versus risk ratio is overwhelming. Masks are much simpler. Masks offer protection to their wearer a bit, but mostly keep you from spreading it before you might even know you're infected. This is when R0 matters the most. It can't be ignored. We all want this to be over. We all want our kids in school. We all want them being educated most effectively and safely. No arguments on any of this. But unmasking the kids in the middle of a freaking highly contagious situation will achieve the opposite. The data demonstrate this over and over. We can look at any number of states that are doing this. Would someone yield 3 minutes for me, please? No. All right.
I have no opinion on the matter, but you can have my 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. Just because you have.
So the board has a duty to do what's right for the community, for the public schools, and that duty requires you to follow the best scientific evidence available, as well as the latest public health guidance, which both say unequivocally that students and staff should continue wearing masks in school. Do we really want to repeat the example of all those states that have thrown caution to the wind and are now paying the price? Do we want to go back to this time last year here in Southington, when my kid was in and out of school, quarantine, close exposure, bing, bang? It was rough. It was no good. Nobody liked that. I think we can all agree. So other states and communities have been smart, been responsible, and demonstrated acting collectively instead of individually to show us the right way to open schools safely and reduce transmission, just by requiring the kids to wear masks. And lastly, what sort of example does the board want to set for students? Are you going to model respect for science, for learning continually as new data emerges, for the STEM tools we all know are the keys to America's future? Will you demonstrate to students and staff that scientists, researchers, biologists, statisticians, doctors, and others who have committed years or decades of their lives to education and hard work to become experts in their field should be looked on with respect, as it used to be, as it always has been, or with a message that students probably shouldn't bother pursuing careers in such fields because their hard-won expertise and contributions to human knowledge can just be dismissed by anyone with a loud voice and a strong opinion? Please, please, do the right thing. Follow the guidance provided by the consensus of real science, of evidence and data, of experts, rather than the impassioned opinions that I feel for you. I really do. But this is, nope, stop. That's not fair. It's not right. The evidence shows clearly the masks work, overwhelmingly effective. Gigantic gold standard study that just came out that involved hundreds of thousands of people. It's going to be peer review published. And that's only one example. I won't say any further, but I ask you as responsible members of the Board of Education to take that responsibility seriously, regardless of how you may feel personally. This sets an example. Thank you very much. And thank you to the gentleman that yielded time.
You're speaking out of order. Excuse me. There should be no dialogue except if you're at the podium. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Anyone else from the public? All right, Mrs. Clark has three emails to read into the record. Mrs. Clark?
Thank you, Mrs. Carmody. Okay. The first one is from Jenna Giacomi. Her address is 51 Arrowhead Lane in Plansville. Hello. Today I'm writing to you in hopes that you will have a better understanding as to why there should not be a mask mandate for children enrolled in Southington Public Schools. I am aware that the Governor Lamont's executive orders are in effect until September 30th, 2021, but I want to continue to push for the freedom to choose whether our children wear masks in Southington Public Schools. Currently, it seems that everyone is concerned about increased hospitalizations among young children testing positive with COVID. If you only watch the news, you would be led to believe that children are the driving force for the increase in hospitalizations. However, data straight from the CDC indicates otherwise. The CDC website has a new admissions of patients with confirmed COVID-19 per 100,000 population by age group, Connecticut. Specifically looking at Connecticut, the data shows that children between the ages of 0 and 17 have a total of 1 hospital admission for the last 7 days from August 26th through September the 1st. Additionally, as of September the 1st, the data shows that children in Connecticut between the ages of 0 and 17 make up 0.12 of the population for new admissions per 1,000 population, whereas ages 70 plus still make up the majority of 3.09. The CDC also continues to state that most children with COVID-19 have mild or they have no symptoms at all. It also appears that they continue to be the lowest risk for severe disease and death. As a state, we have surpassed many others in regards to vaccination efforts. Connecticut has managed to fully vaccinate 66% of its population, with over 88% of individuals over 55 who are considered high risk. Not that I want to downplay anyone's experience or hospitalizations with COVID-19, but the data just doesn't support these universal restrictions on our Connecticut children. I believe we should leave it up to each individual parent, guardian, whether or not to mask our children in schools and be respectful to each other's choices. Thank you for your time. Okay. The second letter is from Marisa Salvo, 8 Yorktown Road in Southington. Dear members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Medancy, I know many in our community and perhaps some on this board are in support of unmasking our kids. How would you as a Board of Education feel after deciding to make masks optional in the following scenario? An elementary student in the Southington School District comes in contact with COVID-19 while in school, becomes seriously ill, requiring hospitalization in the intensive care unit, and needing a ventilator to breathe, and the worst case scenario, dies. What if this child was your grandchild, sibling, or neighbor? With a highly infectious Delta variant circulating, removing masks indoors, as in the case with optional mask wearing, could make the scenario a reality. Just one infected person could spread the virus to an entire class, especially in an elementary school where all children under the age of 12 are unvaccinated. At this time, the COVID-19 vaccine is not indicated for individuals under the age of 12. As the National Education Association, an organization supporting universal masking in schools, states, America's public schools should be the safest place in every community. It is up to you to ensure that this holds true in Southington Public Schools. Remember that the 2020-21 school year proved that kids could go to school and remain safe even during a global pandemic because of universal masking. When you need to make a decision on this topic, I urge you to follow the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation of universal indoor masking by all students ages 2 and older, staff, teachers, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. Please do what you can to protect all children while they are in your school buildings. And now the last one, I am going to publicly apologize for my error. At our last meeting, this letter was given to me. Unfortunately, when I read it, I did not flip over to page 2. I read page 1 and I read page 3. And I told the author of it, her name is Jillian Eckerd, that I had made a mistake. So it is nobody's fault but mine that I did not read the second part of this letter. So I told her what I would do is I was going to paraphrase what she had said. She asked me not to read the whole letter. She said, if you could just, and I said, I will paraphrase what she said. For her first one, she was talking about students, her children, the formative years, and how are they being hindered socially and emotionally with the mask policies, that teachers are struggling to hear their little voices. She's concerned about the psychology of the mask wearing. Now, on page 2, what she has written, I have heard I have heard the argument that, yes, children aren't being affected by this virus that much, but they can still spread it to an adult who hasn't been vaccinated. With all due respect, that unvaccinated adult has made it their choice not to be vaccinated. Why then is it my child's responsibility, our children's burden, to wear a mask to protect them? Let me make my opinion clear. It is not my child's responsibility to protect an unvaccinated adult. I have heard people say it is the parents complaining, not the kids, but I know firsthand that not to be true. I kept a positive attitude in front of my children, not complaining or voicing my opinions for fear they just emulate my behavior. But at the end of the school year, with no provocation, my children started to complain that the masks were harder to breathe in. Perhaps it was because their school lacks air conditioning, and this was a result of the rising temperatures in the building. And I have heard countless other parents speak to this as well. At the beginning of the school year, my sister, also in the Southington School District, asked my niece, who had just started kindergarten, if she could benefit from speech therapy. The teacher honestly said she didn't know because it's very hard for her to hear what her students are saying with the masks on. After testing occurred, she overwhelmingly qualified for services. However, though a year of speech therapy with both my niece and her therapist in Mass, not a single gain was made in any area of concern. These are the children's formative years, and they are being hindered due to these mask policies. Are we really willing to have our children in mass for another school year where the teacher struggles to hear their little developing voices? Recently, studies have emerged that U.S. elementary school students ended this year 4 to 5 months behind where they should have been. No doubt because time and time again it has been proven that the children of this age do not learn the way they were made to learn last year. They need interaction and groups and play. They need to be heard by their teachers. A friend's son's teacher in the Southington School District with a background in psychology noted during their parent-teacher conference that masks are affecting our children's ability to empathize and learn basic social cues. Interested, I then researched this and found published peer-reviewed papers to this point. If we can't tell if someone is sad or hurt or angry, how do we know to stop the actions causing these feelings? Masks are impacting our children's social development. And then she continues about it wasn't that it was just the masking she'd like us to take into consideration. It's the entire school experience that had to be modified, that there were no kindergarten readers, no Valentine long, Mother's Day brunch, events of that nature. And her closing remark was the economy is open, people are traveling, shopping, dining. The way I see it is only our children who continue to suffer, and it's only our children in certain states, seeing that schools around the country in states far worse than ours have opened fully without masks. She asked us to consider that, and thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark.
The 3 letters that I have.
That's the last one, right? All right, that ends the communication from the public. Next on the agenda is communication from Board of Ed members. Are there any Board of Ed members that have something to say? Joe?
Thank you, Mrs. Carmody. In response to one of the things that was brought up during public commentary about CRT in our schools, I myself had a chance to review one of our modules. I don't have it with me right now, but it was in regards to civics at the high school level. Nothing in our curriculum specifically talks about CRT. With that being said, it doesn't mean that certain things may not be, I guess, painted in a way of, again, whatever flavor that we're concerned about as far as getting taught to our kids. I think it's important to leverage the fact that just like anything, there's a measured and metered approach to rectifying a situation where we feel as though that it's not a proper utilization of the school system. That starts at the teacher. That starts with the student. That starts with the parent. And by taking it in stride and essentially going through the chain of command, a lot of times I think that we can essentially fix those issues, essentially repair areas where we find weakness in the way that we're teaching our kids. There is no doubt in my mind that for the most teachers in this district, as well as the administration and this board, I can only speak for myself, but I think in good measure that we all want good, substantial education for our children. and again, it's a matter of dealing with those things as they come up with the people that we have concerns with. The second thing that I wanted to talk about again, our governor has continued to do nothing but be overreaching in what he's been doing to all the districts in this state. Again, he could throw a ball out at a baseball game, and meanwhile he's still asking for more months of emergency powers and all that. I can't for the life of me figure out why he's continuing to do this. Again, we're able to meet here in person. I don't see why the legislative branch can't be doing the same. As far as the consensus of science, there's no such thing. Being a student of science, it's always the push and pull. The past 30 years, everybody remember when eggs were bad for you and now they're the best thing for you. It's essentially the push and pull, the challenge of ideas to make the ideas better. Thinking back to the past number of meetings that we've had, the hours that we've been talking about this, we have questions to ask people. We've tried to ask the Department of Public Health. We've tried to ask the governor's office. I've certainly made a couple of phone calls, and the silence is deafening. Again, there's no person to put a face to it to be able to ask the questions for. This is what government's about. It's about asking questions. It's about challenging and to create a better circumstance that at the end of the day leads to more success. Again, it's not that I'm upset with our school system. I think that we do a fantastic job. My kids have had nothing but great things to say every time that they come home in the past couple of weeks. And I thank you, Mr. Medancy and Mr. Pepe. Again, you guys are doing the best that you have to work with. And I sincerely thank you as a father. Again, for what it's worth, I hear everybody loud and clear. It's just unfortunate that it seems to fall on deaf ears. Thank you.
Missy?
I too want to make some comments to the public for some of the things that were said. I want to echo Joe. I too have reached out to the governor's office with questions from your past meeting that I was at, and there was no response. I've sent emails to ask those questions, to get those answers, and we haven't had a response. To Angelica, I first want to say, please tell Sergeant that we thank him for his service. He was here and wanted to give him, but thank him for his service for us. Really appreciate that. I also want to be able to say that, we need to inform our parents. We can't give you information if we ask a question and we don't give an answer to. So again, I echo Joe as a parent. We're just as concerned as you are. We want to do the best for our students, for our district, and we can only do what we're given to do. We can't do more than that, and we're not doing less. So I don't want you to think that anyone's silence is because we're not working. If you have nothing to say, you say nothing. So silence cannot be misunderstood. I was always taught that. You cannot misunderstand my silence because I have nothing to say. But if I speak out of content and speak untruths, then you have something to come at me with, right? So I want to say that. To Mrs. Ritchie, is she gone?
Yes, she is.
She did leave. Well, I wanted to say that one of the things that she posed was, why is it not consistent throughout the state? It's a great question. That's the next question I will call our constituents up in Hartford. I hear there's an inconsistency with the guidelines that have been passed for the school districts to maintain masks. I hear this is not consistent. Why is it not? I will surely make sure I ask that question. She did bring up a medical exemption, but since she's not here, I won't even address that. But I do know there's a very clear policy with our medical exemption that I'm sure Mr. Medancy or Mr. Pepe would be happy to talk to any parent about. As far as it goes, Mike, I do think you mentioned something about fear in our parents. And that struck the core when you said that to me, that parents were afraid to speak out. That's sad. And I'm going to speak for myself here, but we do not want any parent in our district to feel that any of us on this board, any administration has any power more than they do over their student. That is not the intent of us here on any level. The parent is the number one responsibility for their child, the number one advocate for their child. So I employ every parent to stand up, to fight. Do not be afraid to speak to your student's teacher, principal, guidance counselor. That should never be a place in a parent's heart, is to be fearful for fight for the right for their child. So encourage your other friends that we're here to do what we can, but we can never do more than the parent themselves. That's my last response to the public comments. I have some other board comments that I do need to make. As part of the representative of the Board of Education on STEPS Coalition, Megan wanted me to inform you that all the grant money is going well. They were able to hire an administrative assistant part-time, and they put together their 2021-22 calendar that they are gifting everyone with, that shows the data of all the work that STEPS has done. So each one of you will have a calendar to take home for the end of this year and next year. I also need to give a little shout out to the Southington High School baseball team. And Coach Limbo has been an asset to many people in the town. If you don't know him, you need to get to know him. I serve as an assistant board director at Bread for Life, and Coach, he's got a dear spot in my heart. He's been, going through his life's journey in a different way over the last year and a half, but he has set up something in our boys baseball team where they want back, and the goal was always been at giving back to Bread for Life. So the boys did a food drive for Bread for Life in honor of Coach Limbo. And I just need to give them a shout out because these boys raised a whole bunch of food, brought 3 cars to Bread for Life, and they are so proud because they know that's what Coach would want them to do. So I just really need to give a little public declaration to, all of that effort and remind Coach that we got your back. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I want to first concur with Mr. Bashevsky, what he said about the curriculum, which we will be looking at a little later. But, I also want to report on a meeting I attended. It was a correct council meeting. For those who don't know, that's the Capital Region Education Council. It's made up of a number of boards of education. The Capital Region, we are a member of it. They are the governing body of Head Start, and the presentation this week was about the Head Start program. Head Start services 444 kids and 29 towns until the age of 5. They provide educational supplies, early education, food sometimes, other kinds of diapers and other kinds of needs for families. They look at low income, families with disabilities, and homeless to help. They also do family services such as health screenings, nutrition, education, mental health, special education needs, help. Family engagement is a big part of what they do. They visit homes. And Southington does participate in this program, and an extended day for working families. So that is something else we belong to that's been going on that I thought people should know about. I'm all set. Thank you.
Any other board members? I would just like to say something about what Joe said about CRT and looking at our curriculum, that it is not part of the curriculum that is taught in the Southern school system. I know Mr. Brown will be addressing this at our next meeting, I believe, more specifically. Bob, am I correct about that?
Well, we're going to talk tonight about the course you mentioned.
Okay.
But
you looked at the curriculum, and you see that it is not part of our curriculum. It is something that needs to be repeated constantly, that we are not teaching that. And if someone thinks that we are teaching that, please bring us an example of what we are doing. Give it to us. Let us see it. Our administrators in each building Our superintendent and assistant superintendent will deal with that since it is not part of our curriculum. We on the curriculum committee have examined that thoroughly. We do not find it. So if you are finding it and are criticizing our school system for doing that, please bring us examples, specific examples of when that is being done. Thank you.
Can I just piggyback on
Yeah,
something?
could I? Yeah.
If I may, because with Mr. Valzewski, I also took a look at the 9th grade curriculum.
Right.
And I went through and I looked at all the source documents. I looked through everything that was there. There was nothing. There was nothing there. The source documents were the original documents. So I could not find anything. But I reiterated what Mrs. Carmody just said. If you do have an example of something that you feel is related to CRT that was taught, a specific example, please let us know, because we can look at the curriculum. But if a teacher is teaching your child something and you're not comfortable with it, let us know, because we can't go by hearsay and we can't go by everybody knows you're teaching it. We need to have the specifics, because as I said, I spent a couple of hours going through the curriculum, looking at all the source documentation that was included with it, and I couldn't find anything. So if you have anything, let us know. Thank you, Mrs. Carmody.
Could I add something too? Because I want
Go right ahead, Bob.
The question was asked, what happened to the cases that were brought to us? My knowledge of what happened is those cases were given to the principal. Now, the Board of Ed does not hear all those cases. There may be discipline involved. We don't know what's involved. And the reason we don't pursue it too far is because if, in fact, there is discipline involved and it comes to the Board of Ed, we should not have prior knowledge of what happened. There's been nothing brought to the Board of Ed from the administration that there's a discipline matter that we need to deal with, if that makes sense to you. Beyond that, there are certain privacy issues about how the administration deals with teachers, for example, that you cannot announce at a public meeting, if it makes sense.
Well, thank you. And I hope you all understand that, because we are here. You know, I can't take any questions from the audience. I'm very sorry. I'm not being rude. I cannot allow that. Okay. I'm sorry. But those are the rules. Okay. Excuse me. I cannot allow the dialogue to go on after public communications. We can only answer the questions that we or make a statement about the things that you have talked about. And I think Joe did that, Missy did that, Bob did that, Colleen and I did that. You have to understand that we have certain procedures that we have to follow. And we are following those. We are doing, excuse me, if I may ask you to stop, please. We are doing exactly what we are supposed to do as members of the Board of Education. We are doing that. What is being said or implied, let me say, that we as a Board of Education are not listening to you. We do not hear you. We're not asking the questions of our health director, of our town manager. The state level, we do the very best that we can individually, making phone calls and emails. You have to understand that we are doing our job. And to listen to the criticism that we are not doing that is very disheartening for 8 or 9 of us that are volunteers and put many, many hours into this job. So
Go back to the adjournment, Mrs. Carmody. Fair. Fair.
Yes, Joe.
Mrs. Carmody. So hypothetically, if someone of the public wanted to look up curriculum, I mean, there's a path to be able to do that. Right?
I'll address it in my
We've
report.
said that before.
Okay.
Report.
Perfect.
It's available.
So we're going to address that. Okay.
They
Excellent.
can come, Joe, they can come to the office,
Yep.
this main office here in the municipal, and look up all the curriculum. I think it's online too, isn't it? It's all online also, correct? Yes, I saw most online. Okay, any other communications from the board? All right, thank you. Communication from administration.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few items tonight. We had an opportunity to attend the September Chamber of Commerce meeting. It was a nice opportunity to, upon first starting out here in the district as superintendent, to engage with several of our partners and businesses in the community, talk about potential partnerships and expanding beyond what already exists. In terms of experiential learning for kids, internships, apprenticeships, and whatnot. And so that's a group of folks that seemed very interested in that concept. And I won't go too much further because Mr. Covino is here tonight from our cooperative adult education program to talk a little bit about some of that as well. And he was with me at that meeting on the 15th. Yesterday, I had an opportunity as well to go to the Rotary meeting and talk with folks from the community there about some of the civic engagement that they partake in, and again, talk and give an update about the district and our vision for the district, and so that was a nice opportunity as well. Our after-hours COVID reporting, I just want to take an opportunity during a public meeting to thank our administrators, both the inline administrators at the building level and central office administrators, including Mr. Pepe, Mrs. Passamano, Mrs. O'Hara. People are checking a hotline and a portal every evening and every weekend for reported cases, and then making contact with building administrators and contact tracing as appropriate. Essentially being on call every day, all day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year since last March. And I think it's a true commitment and testament to their professionalism and dedication to the district, and I just want to acknowledge that and the time and the extra effort spent on that. There are many evenings that a report may come in at 7 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday night or a Sunday, and they're stepping away from their families at that point and taking on their role as building administrators and beginning the tracing process and communicating with families. So it's something that is much appreciated, not overlooked, and certainly a testament to their professionalism. And then lastly, with the staff vaccine mandate update, you saw that we sent out communications to the employees about the processes. I have to thank the HR office and department as a whole. It's a monumental task, as you know, with 1,200 employees. And, we got very limited time, I will say, with the amount of guidance that was provided by the state with the process to confirm vaccinations, coupled with attestations, medical exemptions, and religious exemptions. And working through that process, Mrs. Passamano and her team did a tremendous job, have undertaken a tremendous task here. But I'm proud to say I think we're in a very good position come Monday with that, with our employees. So I want to just acknowledge that. And then lastly, I want to give the floor this evening, the remainder of my time with the administrative report, to Larry Covino, who is the director and the leader now. As you remember, last year we talked about entering into a collaboration with the Bristol Public Schools around adult education. And I'm really excited already with the early returns on this. And I think Larry's going to share some news with you tonight that talks about what our residents are getting from this collaborative arrangement. So, Larry, the floor is yours for the remainder of my report. Thank you.
Thank you all, and good evening. I come bearing props, and you'll see some of these popping up throughout the community. I just dropped some off with our adult ed program this evening. I stopped in there to observe and talk with the teachers and with the program coordinator. So I'm excited for this collaboration, and I'll walk you through a couple of things. So this is some information that is gathered by the state of Connecticut, and I want to start off with that piece at the top there. So you'll see these are numbers that were indicated in the 2010 census, which we all know now is, going to be replaced shortly by the 2020 census. But in 2010, there were approximately 2,758 adults without a high school diploma in Southington. There were also 556 adults who did not speak English well. I can tell you with pretty much 100% certainty, the 556 adults who don't speak English well will go up in Southington based upon demographic data that we've seen. And the budget That is this year's budget, which is pretty much exactly in line with what was last year's. If you don't know how the budget operates for adult education, communities receive funding from the state of Connecticut. In the case of Southington, for every dollar that the Southington Board of Ed and the city of Southington puts into adult education, they get 39 cents back from the state. So when you look at that 57,613, that's in fact not the full budget for the Board of Ed. There's approximately 21,000 in reimbursement that will come back. So that 57, I'm not going to try to do mental math at this hour at night, but minus 21,000 is approximately what it's costing you all for this program. These programs are mandated by the state of Connecticut. It is written into statute, which is great because I think it was 3 or 4 years ago when the budget wasn't resolved until mid-October. Adult education programs throughout the state receive their funding because it's the law that we receive it on October 1 and June 1. So with that, in 2021, Southington serviced 25 students and they awarded 4 high school diplomas. Now you'll look at that and say, okay, only 25. But when you look at that 57,000 and you divide that with the 25, it costs $2,300 to educate an adult in your community. Now, when you think about one of those adults who now moves from a job into a career, and what does that mean? Well, because they're in a career, they now have health care, they now have vacation, they now are able to purchase a new vehicle. We all know in Connecticut that our school funds come from property taxes. So that new vehicle they just purchased, I would bet it's more than $2,300 in taxes on that the town of Southington is recouping from that based upon that. We won't go into the purchasing of a new house, moving from an apartment into a house. When you talk about the K-12 world, which I know is where most of you are from, you don't think about return on investment. In adult ed, we think about return on investment. And I've been in education for many, many years, and I had to learn that when I moved into adult education because we're not trained to think that way. So the return on investment from that $57,000 is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times that. Tonight I had the pleasure of sitting in on an ESL class. It was full. There is now a waiting list in Southington for students in the ESL program, English as a second language. Those folks are learning English so they can get better jobs, so they can move forward with their lives. And again, that helps increase the tax base here in Southington. I could talk about this for hours. I promise I will not. In 2021, we had 2 nights of programming. We had the English as a second language. There was only 1 high school completion program with that. There was no school counselor associated with Southington Adult Ed, and the daytime director and the data administrator. Unfortunately, the folks that you had working in adult ed, great people, worked very hard, but they were teachers who were teaching during the day. The state of Connecticut does not run meetings at night, not the State Department of Ed. So for instance, today there was a data administrator meeting that traditionally someone from Southington wouldn't be able to attend because they're teaching during the day. Right. Or you'd have to get them a sub, pay for a sub for them to then be able to attend that meeting to get that information. The collaboration agreement that we now have allows for a data administrator from my building to attend not just for Bristol, but also for Southington. And she also attends for Farmington as well. And she collects that information, puts it together, and gets it to those individuals that need to know that. But you now have someone that's helping to do that in order to help bolster the data being collected for our program. This is what's happening right now. We are open 3 nights a week. We still have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5:30 to 8. But Southington students now have 3 ways to gain a high school diploma. Because with the collaboration agreement in Bristol, they're able to attend programs in Bristol. So they now can be in what's called the credit diploma program, which, should they successfully complete, they would be awarded a Bristol Public School diploma. They can also complete what's called the National External Diploma Program. That's an individual one-on-one program for working adults who cannot take the time to attend classes. They do online work. They meet with an advisor on an as-needed basis, and they also work towards a Board of Education certified diploma. So instead of having one, they now have 3 avenues to obtain that diploma, again, helping them improve their lot in life, move from a job into a career, which again, increase tax base in this community. Southington residents are also able to attend daytime program. In Bristol, we are lucky enough to have both day, afternoon, and evening classes in both our high school diploma program and our English as a second language and our citizenship programs, and a couple of things that I'll get to in just a second. When there's openings, Southington residents will be able to attend, and I just met with our program coordinator here in Southington to go over that to see where the openings are. We're hoping that some of the folks that are on the waiting list for the English as a second language can come during the day. Our night classes are full as well, but we do have some openings during the day. If they can come during the day, they're going to be able to come to Bristol. The citizenship program, which is one of the things I'm most proud of because I love attending those ceremonies, is online. And it's been very successful online. We had 7 students enrolled last year. 5 of them obtained their citizenship this past spring. So when I was in Southington this evening, there was one individual who was inquiring about that. And we talked with her, and she'll be able to attend the program online. So she doesn't even have to drive to Bristol. She can do it from the comfort of her home.
Oh, great.
The other piece is Bristol has applied for approximately $230,000 worth of federal grants. They're called Program Enhancement Project grants. We've had them in Bristol now for about 6 years. And the collaboration agreement with Southington, one, some of you might ask, okay, what's Bristol getting out of it? Well, when I collaborate with Southington, I have a better shot at getting these grants because of regionalization. And in fact, Farmington, Avon, Burlington, Canton, Harwington, and Plainville joined in these grants with us. So we will be offering an allied health program. It will be linked with Tunxus Community College. We will provide the vocabulary, anatomy of physiology coursework, and then students will be able to enroll in Tunxus' certification programs, phlebotomy, CNA, medical assistant, medical office, not stenographer. Sorry, I can't remember all of them. But they'll be able to transition into those. And again, those are the starts to careers for individuals that will benefit Southington residents. They will be able to participate. We have a family literacy program that'll be going on. And the biggest one is the employability skills. We sit down with folks with regards to resume writing, interviewing, career counseling. That's kind of what we all get out of all this agreement. Is my grant going in is stronger because I am now have the opportunity to impact a wider range of adults who are in need, and Southington residents will be able to participate in these programs as well. I think that's it. That's it. Any questions? Like I said, I could stay up here all. They don't let me go to the Bristol Board of Ed meetings because I can talk for hours about it.
I don't know if there's any questions, but how wonderful to have this cooperation, co-op with Bristol. I don't think we can thank you enough for that. And I'm glad that it's working so well and helping those that can. And as you said, very importantly, providing the jobs and the opportunities that are so vital right now with what's going on in our country. So thank you so very much. Zaya?
I just want to say, you're talking about adult education, you bring it full cycle. When you go from, you do the adult education, you get the diploma, but you're bringing it to employability skills. And that's critical because those are not as easy as people think they are.
Correct.
So I mean, I've been in human resources for 30 something years now, and you see these resumes come through, and you take a couple of seconds with them, you move them on because you have so many coming through these days, especially now. There's so many opportunities for people to apply. If you're bringing them in and you're helping them with resume writing and you're helping them with interviewing skills, which is critical as well, you get that stuff out there. I think you're bringing it full cycle, and I think that makes it just a tremendous program. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes, we work on that, and every student graduates with a resume.
Well, that's important because it's not as easy as people think about writing. You know, it's how you scope it, it's how you present it that draws somebody's attention to
I
it.
may send some for you to review.
Please do. Please do.
Bob, go
I have
ahead.
a question. How do people find out about the program? A person living in town who is an adult and doesn't have any connection with schools. How,
It's a great question, and I'm born and bred in Bristol, and I am always flabbergasted when I go to meetings like this, and people will say, "We have what in town?" And all of the programs in adult ed anywhere in the state of Connecticut are free. So
That's right.
one of the things that I'm doing in conjunction with the school district is working on marketing. So the reason I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting was to be able to stand there and let business owners in the community know, particularly about the employability skills, but also to let them know if you've got a great employee that's looking for advancement and they can't because their English language skills might not be good enough, or they might not have that high school diploma, send them our way. And so we're working on that and getting the information out, and that's a big part. We did run, so I'm also president of the statewide organization for adult ed, and we ran a massive marketing campaign through NBC and Telemundo in August. So we're hoping that would help, and that was a statewide effort.
we're looking at a grant, actually, that may be able to help. I don't know if we can add them to our, we're
Sure.
looking at a grant which will help to advertise to people who need help in some way. How do they find out about services? Because it is hard to find out. Maybe we can have a discussion about how that, what he does fits into the grant.
I do a lot of grant writing in Bristol. That's a big part of what I do. Happy to help. Any other questions?
No, but thank you so much. Nice presentation. Really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Now you're good. You're good. So Larry is welcome at our board meetings anytime, but instead of as part of the administrative report next time, I'll put him as new business. Okay, Mr. Darnowski? So the only other thing I'd like to add, and I apologize, I do have one last item this evening, and it's more on a somber note. I know we often take a moment of silence for people that have been employed by the district over the years and maybe have passed on. Not an employee of the district, but Southington lost a true champion since our last meeting in Mary DeCrose. Mary was, as you know, instrumental in bringing SOCA to fruition in the community. And learning about Mary in her years of service to Southington, we have a person who is passionate about bringing people together and unity, and also opportunities for all, really as evidenced by her program that she started within SOCA for students with disabilities and engaging in the arts. And she was also instrumental in this weekend's mural unveiling. So Mary was a champion for children and for the arts, and I just want to take a moment to recognize her for all she did, and I would ask that if we could maybe take a short moment of silence.
Thank you, Steve. Next on our agenda is our Curriculum and Instruction Committee report.
Madam Chair, can we do a moment of silence for Mary?
I'm sorry, what?
Can we do a moment of silence for Mary?
Silence for a moment.
I'm sorry. I
It's okay.
didn't hear you. I apologize. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Bob, you're up next with curriculum.
Yep. On September 15th, we had a curriculum and instruction meeting. I want to thank Mrs. Cipriano and Mrs. Carmody for attending. Although Mrs. Carmody was remote, and that was challenging a little bit sometimes, I think.
That was kind of interesting.
It was
Yeah.
interesting, yeah. Also want to thank the administrators who showed up. Mr. Pepe especially. This was, I believe, his first one in the new role, right? He did a great job, and thank the teacher and also the high school administrators who came. Mr. Roaring was there. Mrs. Holtz-Gruby was there, I believe.
And Mrs. Zapone.
Mrs. Zapone?
Yeah, I was going to get to her.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. And also the teachers. I know some of the teachers really explained to us some of the time they spent, especially Mary Tess Tran and Kevin Curtis on their own working during the summer on some of this work. We're going to give them a real shot at with everything else going on. They spent the time to learn about subjects that they probably didn't have as much of a background in. So I want to thank all those people for the hard work. We dealt with two areas. One was science, and you've all gotten a copy of this, so I won't read the whole thing. The focus of Amy Sapone's presentation was to align the K-5 science curriculum with the NGSS standards and also with our vision of a graduate. Now, you're probably going to ask what NGSS, I wrote it down someplace. New Generation Science Standards, right? Yes. So next generation, right. All right, so those will be the ones that will perhaps be used in standardized testing or something. So it's to align, and that had not been done before. There is nothing to read on that one. We're going to have a presentation in November of the curriculum for that, and then we'll have a first reading and then a vote later on it. The second thing we did with social studies, and it was wonderful to see all my old social studies colleagues, who are just such wonderful people. We had two subjects we talked about. One was the Citizenship in Action course. I want to make sure I get the right title of it. But the Citizenship in Action course. Yep, that's it. For those who don't know, we switched around our teaching of civics and U.S. history. Civics used to be in the freshman year, 9th grade, and then U.S. was in 11th grade. We switched those around, and this was basically a completion of that switch and revamping the curriculum. The one thing I will point out about that course that was amazing, outstanding, is the project that's associated with it. And there's a name they gave to it, an action inquiry project, which is very exciting. The students can be required to create a project and go out in the community, somehow engage, and there are probably guidelines for all of that. It looks terrific. By the way, the question was asked how people can access some of this. There's two things I would say. Our curriculum and instruction meetings, just like the board meetings, are all public meetings. So they're posted. There's an agenda posted. If you want to go on the board, look at where they post everything. You can find out when meetings are, and the public has the right to attend a subcommittee meeting. As long as there's a majority of people there, it's a meeting and it's legal. Mr. Valzewski, we're not supposed to answer questions. You want to ask me after, I'd be glad to talk to you about it, okay? And the second thing is there are copies of our curriculum. The problem is you can't print books and hand them out to people because with all the grades and all the subjects, I believe it would be massive volume. So it is, again, a public document. I believe if you go to probably Mr. Pepe's office now, he would be able to give you copies of anything in the curriculum you are looking for. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Right. So, but it's not like you can go there and say, please hand me the entire curriculum. I think you need a pickup truck probably for that, if that makes sense. And I don't know if they print them out or how that would work even, but you do.
There's a mix.
Okay. Okay. So, and the last course was and I want to make sure I get the title right, the Black and Latino curriculum. This is a new course, a public act by the state created the course and required it. We decided to go in a year early, and this is the one I was mentioning before. The teachers did a lot of work researching over the summer and really finding out things that was not part of their education, actually. And again, just like the Citizenship in Action course, there is curriculum for you all, for the board to read, and we'll be voting on it. This is the first reading tonight, and then we will have a vote on it next time. I did write a couple things about that course. Yes, and that course is an elective course, so it's not a required course that's taken. It's an elective. So if your child doesn't want to take the course, they don't take it. No one's forcing them. But it is a mandated course. Every high school, I believe, in the state will be offering that course starting, I believe, next year, right? Right. So we were a year early. From everything I understand from the discussion, the course has gone very well. The state has also provided extensive training for those people which is really necessary, and it's ongoing, I believe, right? They still have workshops they attend. And by the way, a lot of those things are things the teachers attend on their own. I know in the summer, no one's paying them to go to a workshop or to do the research. And again, I think and I will put critical race theory on the agenda, so the next meeting, that will be a topic of discussion. That wasn't done before, so if that makes sense to you, our next meeting, and I don't know the date off the top of my head, it'll be on the board website. That will be something we will talk about. As Mr. Bashevsky pointed out, if you look at the curriculum, there is no critical race theory in that curriculum. Again, we'll have a discussion at our next meeting.
Mr. Brown, just one comment on the Citizens in Action course.
Yep.
So very well done, Mr. Royan, and for the rest of the people that worked with you on that. For years, we tried to get civics, which was a grade 9 subject, moved to grade 11 because we thought the students were older, would be voting within a year, the whole bit. And it took us a while to get that done. But the greatest thing I thought in that, when we had that discussion that day, was that they are going to investigate global issues in the community, and try to be able to use their critical thinking skills to come up with solutions with that. And I think that's really wonderful that we are encouraging our students to be doing that. It was a great job that you did on that, the whole thing. I'm so thrilled to see it in grade 11. So thank you.
Can I point out one more thing that I forgot to say?
I'm sorry, what?
Just one more thing. It's important to say the curriculum for that course is determined by the state. So we didn't write the curriculum.
State, right.
The research the teachers were doing was to learn about what's in the curriculum. It's a state mandated curriculum.
Right.
Again, it's an elective course, so people don't have to take it if they don't want to, but it is a year-long course that's being offered. So the curriculum is not something that we had to originate, if that makes sense.
Mr. Brown, I want to touch on something as well. With the Citizenship in Action, not only is 11th grade, it's a full year. And I wanted to touch on, it's a full year of citizenship in action. When you read that curriculum, you have access to it, you will see what it will to engage our students in civil discourse. This curriculum is so well done that is going to really ignite some really good thinking and conversations based upon the studies that our teachers have done and what will ignite our 11th graders, those maturing minds right there. I absolutely loved this curriculum and what it's going to set up for our future kids. I really think it was great. To the Black and Latino study, I want to, reinforce that this is a state curriculum. This is not something that now the teachers are following as much as they can. I will say it's a 300-page curriculum.
Yeah.
So, in light of a lot of things, I personally, along with a couple of my other, I went through every curriculum over the last 2 months, 6th grade through 12th grade. I spent lots of personal hours, which I didn't have, but felt a responsibility to, including this 300-page curriculum. Now, it's an elective. With that being said, there are going to be topics that will fire up different passions from different students. Based upon the curriculum and assignment given to our teachers, they are going to set up a lesson plan that will engage the students and get through what the state is requiring them to produce. We will discuss this in further detail, I believe, next week. But I just want to let you know, when you're going to take on looking at the curriculum, take it on. We're going to discuss it next week. It's 300 pages that you need to go through and think about what our teachers are tasked with. And I will say personally, from the 2 teachers that were there, their engagement in studying what they may not have been 100% aware of is indicative of them being the best for our students. And that, to me, as a parent, I would want that for the teachers. They weren't just saying willy-nilly, hey, the state gave us this, we're just going to follow it. No, they went, wait a minute, we're not sure. We're going to study some more on our own and we're going to investigate. And that's what those teachers did for this curriculum. So I want to put that out there. It's very important.
Joe?
Yeah, so Mr. Brown, again, I'm really excited, especially the Citizenship in Action. 2 of the big things that I noticed with that is across the political divide and reading that. If not a time in our history. What a great time to really explore. I mean, this is going to be a sink or swim effect where a teacher can, if they really take a complete blank approach to this, this is phenomenal for kids to really hash out the ideas of conservatism and liberalism and essentially possibly come up with something better. So I think that this is good in a sense of trying to take the goods out of both sides and, you know, merging it into working together. Media madness. I really hope that this goes into the propaganda that is today's media, essentially across all avenues. You know, again, I can't tell you how excited I am to see what this develops into, and you know, sort of following it as it does develop. So thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that they're looking at is how do you detect bias in a source?
Right.
You know, what is an accurate source? And that's a very complicated thing to teach.
Right.
But it's not what to think. It's how to think through detecting bias, et cetera, which, as you point out, is absolutely essential nowadays for people to be able to. And it's complicated, but it is something that's very useful and important.
Not to oversimplify that, though, my grandfather at a very young age always said that if something elicits a visceral response, as far as an emotion, if you will, he always told me that it's good to give pause and do your research. Because a lot of times there's a reason that you're experiencing a certain emotion when you hear a news story or when you hear something, especially in the political realm. So it's one thing of advice that I've always held with me, and it's allowed me to really dig in and hash out the nuances of a certain presentation. So oversimplifying it, but again, it's going to be interesting to see how it comes to fruition.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, but
yeah.
You should go up there and go into one of the classes.
What's that?
Go visit one of the classes.
Yeah, that sounds great.
That would be great. Anything else on curriculum? Next, we have old business town government communications. I don't think we have anything. No? Okay. New business. We have budget assumptions and priorities for 2022-23.
Move to adopt the budget assumptions and priorities for 22 to 23.
Second.
All those, any questions? Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next would be our first read of the Citizen in Action course, which does not require anything, right?
Both of those items are only first read, so there's no action necessary this evening.
And the last item on our agenda is the first read of the Black and Latino curriculum. First read. Again, no action on that. Any other questions? Mr. Darrenowski, do you have something to say?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
They came from steps. Yeah, they want them, yeah.
Let me give you this.
Oh, yeah. That's not. It was cool. We got in there, right? Yeah.
That cooled down quite a bit.
Wow.
Nice try.
That's it. Let's gotcha.